For my learning project, I chose to do the crow position as pictured here. My task is considered a stability without manipulation, discrete, and closed task. I practiced this task in the same environment so that I could focus solely on being able to hold the crow position. As you can see in my first attempt, I had a very difficult time just trying to initiate this position. I received immediate intrinsic feedback by falling on my face. Prior to initiating the crow position, I watched various YouTube videos to understand the best way to practice. The different instructors provided part-task training, which initially helped me understand the step-by-step process. For this specific task, I appreciated the modeling and guidance teaching styles from the YouTube videos, as well as friends who provided post-response feedback. Different internal control parameters limiting me included my weight, flexibility, and strength. I was mostly lacking hamstring flexibility as well as core and arm strength to support my body as I shifted my base of support forward and onto my hands. I was also very apprehensive about falling on my face. As you can see, I did not extend my neck because I wanted to watch my feet as I lifted them off the ground. For the first few weeks of practicing, I remained in the cognitive stage where I had a high number of errors, required high attention, and used trial and error techniques. As seen in the third week, I made small improvements. I was not as apprehensive as I was initially. In addition to practicing the crow position, I also focused on stretching my hamstrings and strengthening my core and arms. I was transitioning into the associative stage of learning because I was learning ways to refine my skill. I learned from a YouTube video to shift my weight back and forth prior to lifting my feet off the ground. A friend also advised to lift one foot off the ground followed by the second one instead of just lifting them at the same time. I was also advised to point my hands outward to expand my base of support. In the original photo, the woman had her knees almost in her armpits and I clearly could not get them past the middle of my upper arm. To compensate, I bent my elbows to gain more support. I started practicing more using the discovery type of teaching so that I could make my own mistakes and refine my skills, such as shifting my weight. I continued to practice using part-task training and constant and massed practice. In my 5th week of practicing, I was able to hold the crow position for almost 5 seconds. Since the 3rd week, I used more whole-task training since I understood the different parts. I also extended my neck before I lifted my feet off the ground since I was not as apprehensive as I was in week 1. I feel I am between the associative stage and autonomous stage of learning. I didn't attempt to add a secondary task since it was difficult for me just to hold this position. I continued to use the weight shifting technique with my hands pointed out and my elbows bent. As you can see, my arms were shaking as I was still holding this position. I learned that teaching styles have to be individualized and specific to the task. For a task such as the crow position, I would implement part-task training since it did entail different parts. In addition, I would focus on different internal control parameters such as flexibility and strength, which could improve the patient's ability to perform their task. I would take videos in the beginning, middle, and end so that the patient can observe her progress and learn from her mistakes. I would also provide both knowledge of results and knowledge of performance feedback in addition to concurrent and post-response during the initial attempts and slowly transition into phased feedback as their task improved. Depending on the task, I would also increase the taxonomy when appropriate. This concludes this video. Thank you.